In the name of Allah, the most gracious and the most merciful, whom we only seek assistance and guidance and put our trust and reliance on Him alone. He has the key to our hearts. Knowingly or unknowingly, we sense the existence of individuals who guide us with calls that carry warm messages. Although some of them were the luminaries of their time, few among them were able to leap over the centuries to steer and enrich humanity. Mawlana Jalaluddin Muhammad Balkhi, also called Rumi, is one of the foremost front runners of these few. He has been inviting everyone without discrimination of race, gender, color, or faith to goodness, truth, and beauty. His invitation, which is symbolized by his call, "Come," keeps guiding hundreds of thousands who can't get themselves out of wars, stress, and lack of communication. Mawlana is the strongest unifying power in our badly divided world. Centuries-old problems have reached the most dangerous level and are asking for an urgent solution. Millions are looking at each other as an enemy rather than as one of the same of God's creatures. It is difficult to expect much from old self-serving systems and technologies. Those are partially responsible for that division. Blind riders with a blind horse are not only a danger to themselves, but also a serious threat to their surroundings. Then Mawlana comes in with unity, love, tolerance, and unselfishness. He shows us where the problem is and how to solve it. This is the reason for his surging popularity. Self is the big curse of mankind. Who could show a better way out of this curse than Mawlana? Mawlana has many messages in his poems, and in this program I'm trying to read one of his verses and do my best to explain it. The verse that I've chosen is number 1129, which is عمر که بی عشق رفت هیچ حسابش مگیر آب حیات است عشق در دل و جانش پذیر. The life that went without love took no account of it. Water of life is love. Accept it in your heart and soul. So Rumi points to the same problem of mankind in the first quarter of the first beat. Life that went without love. Mawlana says that when we came into this world, we came as a divine consciousness. And we made a mental self by conforming to the mental forms that represent external things. And by mistake, we thought that we are this mental character. Mawlana is saying that we have created a fake mind, a mind that it has identified itself with the things. And this mental character that we have created, it constantly validates itself by repeating repetitive thoughts about things that are outside. If a part of this fake mind is damaged, it will try to repair itself. But we are not this fake mental character that we have created. Mawlana says that this fake mental character has to be shattered, and we have to be reunited with God, becoming one with Him consciously. And this is love. So love is a conscious reunion with God. It means returning from the world and uniting with God again. And in his verse, Rumi refers to the period when man was thought to be his mental character. He says, if it was a time when you had a mental character and you were not one with God, don't take that into account. You didn't live. You lived in your mental character, the character that you had it identified with the things. It means you didn't live because your consciousness didn't have the quality, and you only lived your life with physical alertness, no consciousness, no connection with God. And he says, if you have lived your life in that way, don't take that into account of life, you are to blame. Mawlana says, it is your fault. You lived in the state of mind that you have created yourself. So don't blame life for it. And he says, when you were living with that character, with that mental character that you thought it's you might have been full of pain, and God never had this intention for you to feel pain. It is your own fault. Mawlana says, you were not aware that what you're doing is wrong, getting identity from things. This mental character that you've created is not you. And he says you have to get rid of these identities that you have conformed with. Mawlana says you have to separate yourself from these identities that you have created in your mind, and you have to live on the principle of divinity. It means you have to reunite with God, become one with God, because you are the extension of God. In the second verse, he says that this reunion with God and alertness to God is the water of life. That is, as soon as you join Him, you join God, the water of life, the living water, the water that feeds on your soul, your body and your soul, begins to flow. And you no longer have to go on with that mental character that you have created, that fake mental state that gets its identity from things. This fake mental character that unfortunately we have created for ourselves usually gets its identity from three types of things. The first type of things is called material things, such as money, such as spouse, such as kids, such as education, such as status in the community, career, and many other material things. The second category is thoughts and beliefs, and the third one is pains, and also the thrills and excitements are in the third category. Mawlana says, don't waste your time and try to identify what you have identified yourself with, and get rid of these things that you have put in your center. He says, God has given you a life, and He says, be careful not to waste it. Do not live without the love of God and without the water of life and without this quality of your consciousness. Don't waste your time. You also notice that when we go to the world and become acquainted with things, as soon as we become one with them, they become important to us. And we believe that we are that mental character, and we believe that this new addition to our thought family is us, and we again get our identity from these things. As I discussed it earlier, this mental self that was created by conforming to the mental forms, this state of mind, it's also the center of our identity and reflects our consciousness and godliness. The problem is we have filled our center with materials, and now we have a material vision like glasses, and these glasses look at things and situations in a wrong way. Mawlana shows us a way to get through these distracting glasses, and there we can reach the conscious, unconditional love of God, the divine consciousness. And if we put this new consciousness at our center, it will flow to the 4 dimensions that we have. We have 4 dimensions. We have our physics, our body. We have our thoughts. We have our excitements. And the last dimension is the part of us that feels the pain, the physical pain and psychiatric pains. We also know that thoughts are the main reasons that we have excitements and thrills, such as fear, anger, happiness, sorrow, and many more excitements and thrills. So now we know we have a divine consciousness and 4 dimensions. I'm going to be talking about the thought dimension for a few minutes, and we have to know that, we have like 5 senses, such as touching, hearing, smelling, tasting, and sighting, and many more senses. So these senses, what they do is they convert everything into a thought and show it in our mind. For example, when we look at a car, our eyes convert that to a thought and it shows in our mind. Or when we hear a voice, or when we touch something. So our thoughts are made from the senses that we have, and everything is in our mind in the form of a thought. And we know that thoughts are energetic and they have energy. And as we know, we usually think about 60,000 thoughts per day. And for example, for a 40 years old man, he has over many millions of thoughts in his mind, or in this fake mind that he had created himself. So these 4 dimensions, with the assistance of our mind, they create that fake mind. And so again, as I've repeated this many times, this fake mind or this mental status, mental character, it is just a shadow. It is not real. And unfortunately, people don't let go of these thoughts. They don't let go of this material center or this fake mind. And they are lost in their thoughts and excitements and thrills. we earlier said that when the divine consciousness comes into this world, it is transcended by transient things. Everything that our thoughts shows is transient. It means it's going to disappear because they are all mortal. Nothing is immortal except God. Everything will disappear. It may be a year or two or more, but it will disappear over time, and nothing is permanent. Like our money, like our body, like where we work, like our knowledge, like our spouses, like our kids. Everything that we can think of is transient. Nothing is stable other than our own principle, which is the divine consciousness. So, when the consciousness comes into this world, it clings to everything all the time, and it clings to everything that is transient. And this clearly shows that we humans are trapped. We are trapped in our minds, in our thoughts, in our excitements, in our thrills. We are trapped in everything that is important to us. This mental mind, this fake mental status, works with physiological time. It works with the past and the future. So when we have identified ourselves with things, they go to our center and we see things through them. For example, if money becomes important to us, it goes to our center, and in our relationships, if we meet with someone who, let's say, doesn't talk about money, we are not going to like him because we are judging him. Is he going to add more money to me or not? If it's a no, then I am not going to have a relationship with him. And the problem with this attitude is we are going to miss out on a lot of things because this is a wrong judgment. This judgment comes from having wrong glasses on our mind, on our fake mind. Unfortunately, we are always wearing these glasses, and we organize our life according to the things that are in our center. Mawlana says you have to let go of your center. You have to let go of all the thoughts and excitements and thrills and everything that you have, to let God comes and fill your center. As soon as we are identified with things, two properties are born to us. One is resistance and the other one is judgment. When we are identified, for example, with one thought, it becomes our focus. And now we think that we are more knowledgeable than before, and our knowledge is too high. But it is wrong. Although it seems right to us, but it is wrong. This mental status, mental character, which is fake, is always connected to us and connected to other people's beliefs and others' thoughts. So the way that this fake mind works is if it agrees, with what others have to say, he's sure that his knowledge is correct and will judge them, and vice versa. The problem that happens is this judgment precludes God's judgment. And God's judgment is the most important thing in each and every second of our life. If we have resistance, and resistance is usually against what's happening at the moment, if we have resistance to an event or a happening that happens to us at any given moment, we are not letting God's divine consciousness to flow through us. And the reason that we are not letting God's consciousness flow through us is we have this fake state of mind, center that is filled with thoughts. This is the one prohibit us from letting God go through us. And we know the reason, because this mental character, this fake character, has physical consciousness. It doesn't have divine consciousness. This mental character only knows objects, only knows things, and wants life from things, and is constantly looking for happiness, but the happiness that it is looking is in things, in objects, and objects are materials, and materials are forms of energy, and energy, again, it's a thing, and it cannot give us happiness. The only way that we can have happiness is to let go of this center that we have, which is filled with thoughts. Let me give you an example. For example, someone has put his spouse in his center and wants to get happiness from his spouse. What happens here is this person has put the image of her spouse in her center, and he wants to get happiness from the image that it is in his center. And he can't get happiness because, let's say, his spouse, for example, doesn't answer the phone when he calls, or comes home late, or he's on his phone all the time. And because he has already put that person in his center, he believes that a spouse has to give him life and happiness, but unfortunately he can't get happiness. And for him, in order for him to get happiness, he wants to control the situation. And we cannot control anyone in our life, and this would create fear of losing that person. And again, this story goes on and on. And the problem is the physical consciousness that is a result of putting things in our center is a prohibiting factor of happiness. If our center was empty, then we could see her divine consciousness, and we could connect with that. But when we have physical consciousness, we can't have happiness from that image. From that image, we want to get identity. We want to get a sense of security. We want that person to confirm us. But that's an image that can't confirm us. That image is a thing, and the thing has no life. So this moment never gives us life. The resistance stems from being identified with transient things. and we discussed it. When we cling into a thought and we get identified with that thought, resistance and judgment are born. And because we have millions of thoughts in our mind, we are always having a conditional mind, and there is always a dual. Nothing can be categorized. We always have to say it's good or it's bad. Mawlana says that we have to become one with God again, and this is true love. The consciousness of the nature of God must return. And his message is this: come to this moment again and reunite with God. Come and settle in this moment, because God is in this moment, and this moment is from God, and God is eternal. So this moment is going to be eternal. So we have to let go of the physiological time, and we always have to settle in this moment to reunite with God and become one with God. So when we don't have any resistance to a happening, to the current moment, what will happen is we will become an observer. We can see our mind, and we can see our thoughts, and we can see how much we are negative, for example. Until now, we didn't know that. We thought we are our thoughts. We thought we are our emotions. We thought we are the objects that we have clinged with. We thought the things that we have put in our centers are the things that we should hold on to. And we had many, many wrong glasses on our mind because we were attracted to our thoughts. And now when we welcome the current moment, and when we make friend with what's happening, we can disconnect ourselves from the thoughts that are in our center. In the second verse, Mawlana says that we must achieve love. And he says we have to let love feel in our center. It has to become our center. When we put the divine consciousness in our center, which is love, the water of life flows to all of our four dimensions that we have, and it will bring us back to life. Until now, we have been keeping things in our center, and we used to see things through them. But now we have to admit that we have made a mistake. We have to admit that we had a material center. Now we have to apologize. From who? We have to apologize to God. We always apologize to God. Sometimes its name is, in the religious languages, repentance. Whatever you want to call it, you have to apologize, and you have to let God flow through you. And when this happens, love comes, because we are the continuation of God. In his verse, Mawlana is trying to make us familiar with patience. Patience means that you know that you are one with something and it is in your center, but we have to open up the space. We have to open up the inner space that we have, meaning in the face of what you don't like and that life at this moment puts in front of you, you have to open up this space. Mawlana is trying to tell us that there are two types of happenings. A happening or an incident or an event either happens inside us in the form of thoughts, negative thoughts, positive thoughts, or an external incidents, external happenings. When, for example, we are in a situation and someone tells us something, so the moment has shown itself in the form of a happening. And Mawlana says, when in life you are in a position that you don't like something that has been put by God in front of you, you have to open up the space. It means that we have to create a space between the happening and ourselves, or the thought and the thing in our mind. For the state of mind that we had created before letting God go through that, we knew that that state of mind would not accept patience, because it always wants to make judgment and resistance to the happenings. But now we are not letting that center make judgment for the happening or resist to the happening that it is in front of us. This fake mind status that we have created for ourselves doesn't like to submit to the current moment, doesn't like to be friend with the current moment, because in the eyes of this fake mind, something bad has happened and we have to resist. Mind feels that one of the identities that it had associated with has been taken away from it. For this reason, it always resists to the current happening. And why it does that? Because it wants to get life from the current happening. By accepting the incident in the current moment, by making friends with the current moment, we won't let the mind, this fake mind, to make a judgment to say if it's a good thing or it's a bad thing. We will take this away from mind. Therefore, we always have to open up the space around the current moment. At the beginning, we might feel pain because we are under the impression that the thing that we had got our identity with has been taken away from us, and we were attached to it, and we think part of us is taken away from us. But it's okay, because now we know that we have been clinging to a thing that should have not been in our center from the beginning. Rumi also points out that the event that is happening outside or inside us in the form of thought, it is a reflection of our center. And God creates the moments based on what is in our center to awaken us. Because God doesn't want us to feel pain or sorrow. For this reason, by making events and happenings and incidents, He tries to awaken us. He wants to tell us the thing that we have clinged with and the thing that we are identifying with cannot give us life, because it is perishable, it is mortal, and we should have not kept that in our centers. And on a momentary basis, He changes the happenings that we confront each and every second. I have to say that even if you are not religious, you know that there is a great wisdom in the world that is watching over you, and that is the one who's making things happen in front of you and in your thoughts to awaken you. And the purpose of these events and happenings that happens to us is to show us that it is wrong for us to have a center filled with things, thoughts, people, beliefs, material objects. And instead of that, we have to put God, the divine consciousness, in our center. When God is in our center, instead of using our glasses, we are using God's glasses. And at first, it might be difficult for some of us to submit to the current moment and agree that an incident has happened, but gradually, when we open up more space, we can agree to anything that happens to us. You might get this feeling that when I'm saying that we have to submit to the current moment is we have to agree to what happens to us. But this is not what I'm trying to say. Basically, Mawlana says that when we have God's eyes in our center, when we have God flow through us, God will enable us with His power, enable us with His mind, enable us with His security, and the direction and the guidance that flows through us is the one that is using God's guidance. But when we use our own thoughts and we don't submit to the current moment, when we resist to the moment, when we make judgments, we always go back to our own millions of thoughts that we have in our mind. And by now we know that we have a conditional mind, and the result is going to be an anger. The result is going to create a pain in someone, or pain in ourselves that could last for years and could create many health problems for us. As you know, most of the people are on antidepressants globally, and I believe the ratio is over 70% of the adults. So why people are using medications? Why they are using these psychiatric medications? Because those medications do the same thing. They have the ability to make your mind think slower. But other than the side effect that it has, it doesn't let God flow through your thoughts and eventually through you. So Mawlana's message is very clear. You don't need to see psychologists or a psychotherapist if you constantly try to accept the current moment and make friends with it and let God's divine consciousness flows through you. He will guide you. He will give you security. You will use His knowledge and power. So going forward, when we are encountering, let's say, a life-size identity that we had ourselves identified with, or let's say a very, very bad event happened to us, and a bad incident happens to us that wants to take away life from us, what we would do is we would not resist. We would resist before. We used to have negative reaction or curse. but now we won't. Mawlana says that if we resist to the current moment, if we judge the current moment, then God can't help you. He says, pay attention. Mawlana says, you always have to evaluate your relationship with God at this current moment. Is it friendly or is it hostile? If it is friendly, life can help. If it is hostile, it cannot help at all. So when we resist, God can't help us. And it doesn't mean that He doesn't want to help us. It means we are resisting to the current moment by making judgment and resisting to the event that has happened to us. We are very amazing creatures. We have free will. We can either choose to stay in misery and continue in misery and pain, or we can let God make our living. So the most important question is always the same. What is my relationship in this moment with God? And your relationship with this moment or God is equal to your relationship with the current moment, because this moment is an integral part of the current moment, and God has created this and wants to do something for us. To wrap up this program, I would like to make a summary of the messages that I have received from Mawlana's verses. All the happenings are in the form of energy, and our mind is full of thoughts, beliefs, excitements, thrills, and material objects. Anything that can be seen in this world is material, and unfortunately we have a conditional, subjective mind, and that's the main reason that we don't let God to flow through us. And the result and the outcome of clinging to things and getting identified with things will be in the form of thrills and excitements and fear, sorrow, pain, anxiety, jealousy, hatred, and animosity, vigilance, enmity, and many other negative excitements would affect us. An example at this time would be the COVID-19 respiratory disease that has been affecting all the countries globally. No matter how much money you have, you are not able to, at least at this time, control it, and you have the fear of it. Why? Because you were thinking that your money can give you security, your money can give you wisdom, your money can guide you, your money can give you power. But now, no matter where you live in this planet, if you have the fear of COVID-19 respiratory disease, you are going to feel the fear. Why fear? Because we don't know how to cure this disease at this time, and the problem with that is mind doesn't accept it. Mind creates fear, and the anxiety will overcome the society. So what Mawlana is saying is, by accepting the current situation, we can let God goes through our center. We can let God guide us, and we can get security. We can get God's guidance, God's wisdom, and God's power to deal with this disease. So because we cannot control this coronavirus with our money and technology and knowledge, we have fear. And it is the same for everything else. Let's say we love someone, and it's okay to love someone, but as soon as we put that person in our center, now we have the fear of losing that person because we love him or her so much. And in order for us not to lose that person, we have to, for example, control that person. And we can't control people because everything that our minds show is transient. It changes. Nothing is stable. And because we cannot control, then again, fear would overcome our feelings. And this is wrong because God doesn't want us to feel the pain. That is the reason that He's constantly trying to change the happening in the current moment, that we become friend with the incident in the moment or the thought that has entered our mind. It is fair to say that we humans, with the mind that we have, we are constantly adding more thoughts, and we are covering and blocking the God's divine consciousness because we constantly use our thoughts. We have to accept that it is God who gives us sorrow and happiness. Anything that we love in this life except God will turn to thorn, because this is how it works. God wants to awaken us. If we are clinging to thoughts, if we are clinging to things, they cannot give us life. And that is the reason that we will feel pain when we don't have God in our center. It doesn't matter to God that you have Him at your center or not. Still, He will create the upcoming happenings and incidents in front of you and in your mind. He does that to awaken us. We have to revive to God. The definition of faith in all the religions, it's the same. It means that we have to lose this image that we have, that fake mental image that we know it as our own self. We have to drop that. We have to get rid of that and let God goes through us with our own submission. So when we don't have faith, it means that we have God, but God is trapped inside our thoughts, beliefs, emotions. Mawlana is trying to tell us that we have to say no to everything that is important to us. We can have everything. We can have all the money in the world. We can have everything that we can possibly imagine, but we should not put it in our center. We can't replace things with God. We can't get security, wisdom, guidance, power from the thoughts and the things that we have in our center. We know that getting rid of this center, this self, is a very long, gradual process, but it is worth the result. Because our true life starts when we have God in our center. And we would realize that if God has filled our center, the incidents that happen outside or inside in our mind really doesn't matter, because we are now an observer. We can see what's going on in our mind because we are the divine consciousness. We are not our thoughts. Therefore, if we put God in our center, we will have His power, security, happiness, and wisdom. All comes from our inner center. But if we put thoughts, beliefs, emotions in our center, the result would be pain, sorrow, anxiety, and fear. At this current moment, if we fear, if we have hatred, if we have the sense of imperfection, if we have anxiety, if we are worried, we need to know that we are having materials in our center. But as soon as we reunite with God, by even accepting our current situation, we will let God go through us and we will feel the happiness. It is the only thing that God has not disallowed us. We can let Him go through us, and I can give you a simple example. Next time when you are in a situation that you don't like, just accept the situation without prejudgment and resistance. For a moment you are going to feel relaxed, and that is the moment that you have let God flow through you. And this is the real love. This is the real happiness. We have to evaluate our current situation, and we check ourselves again if we have fear, if we have anxiety, if we have stress. As soon as we understand that we have these feelings and emotions, as soon as we accept it, the process of freedom starts. It requires practice and practice and practice. Opening up the space, accepting the situation, because life inside this fake mental state doesn't have any balance, because this fake mind has limitations. For example, if you have all the money in the entire world, but if you have fear, you are not going to enjoy your life. And it is very clear that, as Mawlana says, because these thoughts are things, and things cannot give us life. This is very, very simple. But unfortunately, the humanity has turned to things such as money to get its happiness from. On the other side, if you have no money, but you have God in you, you will feel so relaxed and you are so happy that even you don't want to change it with anything. I have to say that, as Mawlana says, if you let God flow through you and enter in your center and you lose yourself, even the entire world will open up to you. Your career will be a better one. You will have more money. You will become a better person because you have God's power. You have God's wisdom. You get your security from God. And He is the one who is guiding you instead of this fake status of mind that we have created in our life. As I mentioned, we think about 60,000 thoughts per day. So one great order to our mind would be to stop working, turn off, meaning our mind has to be turned off. And that comes with submission. And submission is what brings us happiness, the divine happiness, not the type of happiness that we would get from drinking a liquor, or a happiness that we would get from people. For example, when they confirm us, we would never need that again. Another order to the mind: don't judge the current happening. Don't resist to the current happening and in this moment. This will result in experiencing the happiness, the divine happiness, and that is God's wish for us. And the result of this happiness would affect our thoughts, would affect our behavior, and we will be more creative, and we will be blessed, and we will have God's blessing, and we can change the world into a better place for everyone. Mawlana says that the definition of success is not how much money you have or how many materialistic things you have gathered in your life. He says the true definition of success is, on a momentary basis, you overcome your fake mind. Mawlana says, if we go deep in this fake mind that we have created for ourselves, which is full of thoughts, we would be more into troubles, because we are not letting God to think through us. As it can clearly be seen, the people that are very hard-minded are the people who create more problems for us. They are not problem solvers, because they are constantly trying to reinforce their status of their mind. Unfortunately, using this mind, this fake mind which is full of thoughts, we have created many books, we have created many procedures, behaviors, formulas, but these are all made by the same mind that we have. Mawlana gives us a very good example. He says we are like a bird who's stuck inside a trap that is constantly tying and untying a knot. And at the end, it becomes master at tying and untying a knot. And this is what the humanity is doing. We are stuck and trapped inside this fake status of mind that we have created for ourselves, tying and untying problems all the time. And he recommends, instead of us trying to tie or untie a knot, we shouldn't even untie it. We have to let life, the divine consciousness, to open up the knot. So we have to be thankful to God. We have to be satisfied. And we shouldn't fight. We shouldn't judge. We shouldn't resist to the current happening which shows itself in the current moment. Because complaining will not let God go through us and will stop God's wisdom to enter us. So, a best solution would be, no matter in which situation you are, you can always turn your face toward God, and this is the only thing that we have not been prohibited from. God always embraces us. Now we know that thinking with this mind that we have would disconnect us from God. We have to stay away from this addiction that we have to add things to ourselves. This is a wrong impression that we can get life from these things. They cannot give us life. We are divine consciousness, and really things cannot get us any happiness. It is very, very clear. God has eternity and infinity, and when we connect with God, we turn to those characteristics as well. Unfortunately, we as humans, we always think that a future incident can give us life. A person in the future can come and save us, or a lump sum or an amount of money that we receive could give us happiness, and we put our life on hold for that future moment, and we don't enjoy the current moment, and this is wrong. We know that with our senses and with our thoughts, we can only see material things such as money, our spouses, kids, and we want life from these material objects. Our true needs are only food, clothing, and a place to stay. But any other needs that we have is a psychological need. It is not true needs, because they are transient, they are not stable, they change every time, and they cannot give us the divine satisfaction. I would assume all of us are familiar with the law of attraction. So, if we have pain and sorrow or fear in our center, what will happen is this center of us will start adding more pain, more fear, more sorrow to itself. And this center that is filled with pain would give us the power, guidance, security, and wisdom. This is wrong, because our 4 dimensions will be controlled by pain or fear or anxiety. And according to the law of attraction, anything that is in our center would constantly attract the same material. So if we have pain, we will get more pain, we will meet more people that have pain, and we will add to the pain of our family, the society, and the globe. So there is a self-check here that we can see what comes out of us when we are in a situation, and that would tell us what we would get back from the world. For example, when we constantly complain that we have no money, the world will give us no money. We will receive nothing. If we don't give love, we won't get love. whenever we are sad, we need to know that we are sad because of a very small thing. We are sad because of a thing. And everything is small and everything is a thing. The only thing which is not small is God, the divine consciousness. Everything that can be seen with our mind is not loyal to us because it is transient. Everything, such as our money, our friends, our father, mother, our spouses and kids, they are not loyal to us because we are all transient. This doesn't mean that we should not perform our role in relationships. On the other hand, it says that once we know the source of true love, which is submission to God, with knowing this, we can manage our relationship in a better way. By doing so, going forward, we wouldn't need our spouses, our kids, our money, everything that we have to give us life and happiness. Mawlana says, anything that makes you happy in this world, think of the moment of separation at the same moment too. Because that thing, that person, that mind picture is not permanent. It is transient. It will vanish gradually. So at the time that you are happy with something or something that has made you happy, realize that that is not going to last forever. And knowing this is the beginning of freedom. Freedom from future pains. For example, you will meet this new person and you fall in love with that person. But at the same time that you meet that person, you need to know that either there might be a breakup, either you are going to leave him or he's going to leave you, or a death might happen. So by knowing that that is not forever the love that you're getting from that person, when the time comes, you won't get hurt. So enjoy the relationships, but don't hold that person tight. Also, Mawlana says, whenever you feel pain and you are sad, thank God. Because God wants to tell you that from the thing that you were thinking is going to give you happiness, that proved itself that it cannot give you happiness. Because the happiness, the divine happiness, comes from God, connecting to God, letting the true divine consciousness passes through you. So God is the one who makes you happy or sad. We have a free will. We always have two roads to choose from. One road is connected to God, and the other one is the other way, which is exactly the opposite side. If we are looking for God's power, security, wisdom, and guidance, which will result in divine happiness, we have to choose God's road. If not, we will always feel pain, fear, anxiety, and this will have a huge effect on our physical body as well. I would like to thank you for listening to what I have learned from Mawlana's one verse, and thank you very much for being patient with me. Please add me to your prayers. Be happy and read more of Mawlānā's verses and enjoy life. Thank you very much. Be well and take care of yourself.